Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
Once again, good evening, everyone. Does anyone need to use a repeater before we begin the 9 p.m. Skynet? Come now with your call sign if you'd like to use a repeater before we begin Skynet. This is Chaz, Kilo Foxtrot 5, Juliet Hotel Alpha. I'll be your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night since, well, 2012 at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purpose is to help amateurs to become more familiar with the nighttime sky, daytime sky, astronomy, and space, and those kind of things in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic, and we encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. Stations with priority or emergency traffic during the net may enter the net at any time by using the # sign break and your call sign. Is there any emergency or priority traffic at this time? This is a directed net. Please do not transmit without directions from net control. That would be me. And the stations are reminded to ID at the end of their transmissions like this. This is KF5JHA. This weekly net operates on 146.88 megahertz with a private line tone of 110.9. Check-ins via Echolink are also possible. We have several people over there. I'll get to those in a few minutes. But if you'd like to use Echolink, you can go to W5FC-R station ID or the Echolink node 37247. Tonight's topics, astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio-video links are available online. Go to W5FC.org right now for the complete list. Remember to tell others about this popular net. Yes, there's a video version of Skynet. So go to W5FC.org, click on the link, and you go to YouTube video version of Skynet. We have all sorts of pretty pictures and stuff over there. Now, you can check in electronically by going to the club's website, again, W5FC.org. Look on tonight's announcements and click on the hot link to check in. We'll be acknowledging you on the air, and don't worry if you don't check in via that method. We can get you on voice and continue to do that too, and also over Echolink. All amateur operators are welcome. You need not be a member of any amateur radio club to participate. The net is 90 minutes long and structured in several parts. So, general announcements: Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, National Space Society of North Texas events, recent astronomical discoveries, discussion topic of the evening, what is up, space exploration and space history, constellation of the week, space launches of the week, visible satellite passages, astronomical Q&A, and the 73 round. We'll get to all of these tonight. I'm sure we will. Currently, let's see. I'm going to check the online electronic version of the check-in. Be back in a moment. Unless something has happened, I think I've only got 5 check-ins over here. I've got KE5ICX, that's Tom, he's in Corpus Christi. I've got NT5TN Tony, he's in Enigma, or wrapped in one. K5MCD Cody, that's in Dallas. W5BLT Bill, he's in Garland. And myself, KF5JJ. I'm transmitting along with Bob the Cat. I hope he doesn't want to interfere with my electronic devices I have right here at hand, although he's wandering around tonight. Okay, are there any more electronic check-ins? I don't see right now. So let's see now. Hold on a second. Okay, I guess it's time for general check-ins. But what I'd like to do is, if we have anybody that's short time or low power, you can check in now. Low power, short time. What I'd like you to do is check in phonetically with your call sign, slowly. I only do this every once in a while. And your name and your location. Just the first 3 people first that are short time and low power. Please come now. Kilo 5. Well, John, part of your transmission stated, but I know you're K5JDW, so you're in Capel. Are there any other short-time or low-powered people that would like to check in via radio? Come now, slowly, phonetically, with your call sign and your name and your location.
Kilo, Golf 5, Uniform, Foxtrot, Romeo, Jacob, Farmers Branch. Kilo, Foxtrot 5, Zulu, Bravo, Lima, Bill, Farmers Branch.
This is WB50ZL, Brenda in Dallas. I did the electronic check-in, but you didn't call my name, so I'm checking in here.
This is Whiskey 5, Golf, Uniform, Sierra, Gus, far, far northeast Dallas.
Okay, Brenda, I don't see you on the electronic check-in. Maybe it's not refreshing properly. But I've got you over on Echolink, so I've already checked you in. Gus, welcome tonight. I've got Jacob and Bill as well. So we're up to 5 check-ins over on the radio. We've got 5 on the electronic. I'll see if I can fix that because it looks like we've got some more people coming in there. And I've got several people over on Echolink. Now, let's do general check-ins on the radio frequency. We'll do this in groups of 3. If you'd like to check in tonight on Skynet, come down with your call sign slowly, phonetically. I don't do this very often. Your name and your location. We'll do this in groups of 3. Come now.
November 5, Bravo, Bravo. Bill in Irving. I checked in electronically, but you didn't call a name.
November Victor 5 Foxtrot, Virginia in Fort Worth. Chaz, just try reloading the page with the document on it. It'll probably refresh.
I don't know. I'm using a tablet to look at the sign-ins electronically and it's not updating. I'll have to reset the tablet probably. All right. So if you'd like to be recognized on Skynet tonight, excuse me, come now with your call sign, your name and your location. We'll take the check-ins via radio. Please do your call sign slowly, phonetically, so I can get it on our log.
Good evening, this is Alpha Golf Niner, Sierra Golf, Antonio, in Dallas, AG9ST.
Sounds like it could be a slow night. Antonio, welcome to Skynet. You're one of our regulars. Okay. Are there any other people that would like to check in on radio? Come now with your call sign slowly, phonetically, and your name and your location.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Whiskey Victor Lima, James in North Carrollton.
Whiskey 5, Quebec Mike. Jim, Grapevine.
Hang on just a minute. I got Grapevine. I didn't get your call sign or your name. Kind of weak on the audio, so please come now with your call sign once again and your name. Thanks.
Whiskey 5, Quebec Mike. Jim in Grapevine.
Thank you, Jim. Got you that time. W5QM. Okay, are there any other people who'd like to check in to Skynet using radio? Come now with your call sign, slowly, phonetically, and your name and your location.
Kilo, India 5, Juliet, Charlie, Mike. KI5, JCM, Thomas, and Euless. Let me know if I need to slow it down even more.
No, that was slow enough. Thank you very much, Thomas. I appreciate that. KI5JCM. Are there any other people that would like to check in radio before I go to Echolink? Please come.
This is
And your name and your location.
Whiskey Bravo 4 Mike Foxtrot India W5FC. Ted, Dallas, low power.
Ed, I don't know how you do low power, and you come in so crystal clear. That's awesome. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. All right, I'll tell you what. Let's go over here on Echolink. I've got Tony. I've got Tom. I've got Brenda. Brenda's already checked in over radio. I've got Jimmy. I've got Dale. All of those, I've already checked in. I've got you written down. But if any of you on Echolink would like to check in via voice, please come now. We'll let you have some extra time because you're on Echolink. Come now with your call sign and your name and your location if you'd like to share that. All right, we'll do more check-ins later. Let me see. I'm going to scroll down the script. Let's see now what's next on our script. Yes, we have a script. It's only 500 pages long. Well, not really, but anyway, I'm supposed to talk about announcements. Do we have any general announcements for this evening's set? They can be ham, astronomical, space, or of general interest that licensed hams. Come now with your call sign if you have a general announcement you'd like to provide to us.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike.
Tony, I'm sure that that's something that you usually do, yes. Well, while you're making these announcements, I'm going to go check my, how I can update the electronic responses. Okay. Come now, Tony.
Thank you, Chaz. Now, I love this net, and given that Chaz is net control, it's likely to be very rich in puns, as well as knowledge. But this is not our last net of the evening. We have another net, usually with a lower pun content, but sometimes with a lot of very harsh things to say. The Afterglow movie discussion tonight on this repeater at 10:30, 10:35-ish, somewhere around there, will focus on the movie, I'm pretty sure it's a movie, Conquest of Space, from 1955. It's in color, and eventually it does come to an end. So you see, it has two redeeming features. This Monday, right here at 7 p.m., we're going to have our Ham Fixins Net. So take advantage of the holiday weekend here and try something out in your kitchen so that you can talk about it on Monday night. And finally, but most importantly, this Tuesday will be the Dallas Amateur Radio Club meeting night. This month's program is a show and tell. So please bring something to show and talk about. Join us at 7 p.m. in the third floor community room of the Dallas Medical Center. Web Chapel and LBJ, park in the parking, it's free. Take the elevator to the third floor. Our meeting room is along the only way you can, and you can't miss us. We're noisy and friendly. There are more details, including a map, at w5fc.org. And I hope that was long enough for you to solve your problem, because I'm out of announcements now. NT5TM.
Thank you, Tony. I just reset everything, and I found a bunch of people over there on the electronic check-in. Yeah, this is KF5JHA. I've got Rob, AA5AH, and Richardson. I've got, let's see now, Virginia, who's already checked in. Bill, who's already checked in. Clay, a neighbor of mine, N50F. Dale, he's already over on Echolink, got him. Brian, I've got you, KG2BAD, got you. Hang on, I gotta scroll down. And I've got Tom KC5 CAT. He's in Lakewood. And Antonio, I've got you checked in a couple of times in a couple of different ways. I think I've got everyone checked in now. Wow, that's awesome. All right, let me see. What else? You know, there's a lot of different nets that we have on this repeater. We've talked about a couple of them already. Let's see. Yes, tonight's net of Skynet is not the only one that's going to happen. There's another one that's going to be coming later on. But I think there's an important one I've got to mention on Monday because it's a holiday. Ham Fixins. Oh, man, you need to go to the Ham Fixins net. But if you'd like to figure out all the nets, just go to W5FC.org. There's a listing of, a couple of dozen different nets that go on throughout the week. So I'm not going to go through all of those because that's 3 pages worth of stuff that I can skip through. Yep, okay, there we go. But there's an Afterglow movie that starts 10:30-ish, plus or minus a few minutes. But KE5ICX has the details about that. Tom, could you tell us about that? This is KF5JHA.
Well, thank you, Chaz, and thank you, Tony, for announcing it. I like to give the details to the movie. This is my highly accurate synopsis of the film. Brian Haskin was an accomplished director, and he wanted to put on screen the greatest science fiction adventure of all time. However, he didn't have the budget to do that, so he ended up making Conquest of Space instead. He scanned the art department drawings. Over in the corner was the famed Chesley Bonstel chained to his desk. He'd been kidnapped under the cover of darkness, blindfolded, and taken to a secret film production facility. Next to him was rower number 2, as they would have said in the galley scene from Ben-Hur, was famed writer Willie Lay. He was frantically churning out dialogue for the film. Haskin turned to the drawings and the script. Moon? 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 That's where our rocket is going? Are you too crazy? I want bigger, further, better. What do you think I'm paying you? Oh, wait, I kidnapped you and I'm not paying you anything. He continued. Redraw all the maps as Mars. Paint the spaceship blue. Add wings and make sure there is a meteor shower. Every sci-fi movie worth its salt has a meteor shower. He turned to Werner von Braun, his technical advisor, who suggested kidnapping the talented duo, not to mention chaining them to their deaths. I hope you were right about this. Join us for Conquest of Space from 1955, and if you wondered why you saw this film and couldn't remember the plot, there's a reason why there isn't one. Tonight at 10:30 p.m. Back to you, Chaz, KE5ICX.
Not sure if I'm supposed to call you Father Skynet or Grandfather Skynet. I guess it depends on what you're feeling today. You can keep up with the DARC events, nets, and activities going on to the club at W5FC.org. Again, isn't there a club meeting on Tuesday? Now, let's see. Let me see. I've already checked in the electronic people. Record any names. Done that. Let's see now. What's next? I'm going to talk about something that I have to do. The Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas club meetings and stuff. Well, slide master, that would be Tom. Tom's our slide controller for YouTube. On September the 26th, 2025 is the next Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas club meeting. The meeting will be held at 7:30 p.m. in person at the University of Texas at Dallas, and there's also a Zoom component. The featured speaker is going to be Matt Penn. His topic is going to be on Citizen, CATE, and Citizen, DEB. These are solar eclipse experiments. This should be interesting, since we've had a couple of solar eclipses over the last year and a half. Now, TASS hosts Saturday night public observing sessions in the Dallas area. Skynet was picked to be on Saturday night, so there could be an opportunity for live reports from the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas public observing sessions. But unfortunately tonight, there are no public observing sessions scheduled on the 5th Saturday of the month, which is tonight. But you can check the TASS website at texasastra.org for up-to-date information and details about meetings and public observing sessions. So, next comes up is the National Space Society events and activities. Bill, N5BB, I think he's the VP. Would you tell us about the NSS of North Texas?
Well, certainly, Chaz. This is N5BB. I am the Vice President and the Membership Director of the National Space Society North Texas Chapter. The National Space Society is a nonprofit group based in the U.S. which is interested in the exploration and development of space and the creation of a spacefaring civilization. Our local NSS chapter website is ntx.nss.org. Our group also has an active Facebook page. Just type National Space Society of North Texas into the search box. The North Texas chapter of the National Space Society meets at 3:30 p.m. on the second Sunday afternoon of each month. The meeting location is Spring Creek Barbecue on the southwest corner of Highway 183 and Beltline Road in Irving. The last chapter meeting on August the 10th was a virtual presentation by Dr. Rosalie Lopez of NASA JPL, who discussed the Cassini-Huygens space probe, which investigated Saturn's moon Titan. Our meetings are also available virtually. Contact Bill N5 Bravo Bravo if you'd like to attend. Our next meeting will be on Sunday, September the 14th. And this is N5BB. On the last Friday evening of each month, from 6 to 8 p.m., the National Space Society North Texas Chapter sponsors a social event called Space Rendezvous. Location is Chitter's Restaurant, 700 West Highway 635 in Irving. Anyone is welcome to attend and discuss human activities in space with us. No membership in any group is required. The last Space Rendezvous event was last evening. The next Space Rendezvous will be held on Friday evening, September 26th, always the last Friday of the month. The United States Mint opened sales for rolls and bags containing the fourth and final American Innovation Texas $1 coin of 2025 in early August. The reverse or tails design of the coins in these products honors the innovation of mission control at the Johnson Space Center in Houston. They include an astronaut in a spacesuit at the ISS. They are legal tender, but they're not released through normal circulation. You have to order them from the U.S. Mint. Please contact me, N5BB, if you'd like one of these coins. If you have any questions about the National Space Society, please contact Bill, November 5 Bravo Bravo, at his QRZ listed email address or at space@byram.net. That's all I got, Chaz. This is N5BB, clear.
Thanks, Bill. Yes, this is KS5JHA, the net control for tonight's Skynet. The next segment says recent astronomical discoveries. That would be Brenda, WB5OZL. Brenda, tell us all about what's going on.
Thank you, Chaz. This is WB5OZL. The title of this article is Jupiter's Core Isn't What We Thought. The mystery at Jupiter's heart has taken a fresh twist as new research suggests a giant impact may not have been responsible for the formation of its core. It had been thought that a colossal collision with an early planet containing half of Jupiter's core material could have mixed up the central region of the gas giant, enough to explain its interior today. But a new study published in Monthly Notices of the Royal Astronomical Society suggests its makeup is actually down to how the growing planet absorbed heavy and light materials as it formed and evolved. Unlike what scientists once expected, the core of the largest planet in our solar system doesn't have a sharp boundary, but instead gradually blends into the surrounding layers of mostly hydrogen, a structure known as dilute core. How this dilute core formed has been a key question among scientists and astronomers ever since NASA's Juno spacecraft first revealed its existence. Using cutting-edge supercomputer simulations of planetary impacts with a new method to improve the simulation treatment of mixing between materials, researchers from Durham University, in collaboration with scientists from NASA, SETI, and SINS, University of Oslo, tested whether a massive collision could have created Jupiter's dilute core. Going to reset. The simulations were run on the Dirac Cosmos supercomputer hosted at Durham University using the state-of-the-art Swift open-source software. The study found that a stable dilute core structure was not produced in any of the simulations conducted, even in those involving impacts under extreme conditions. Instead, the simulations demonstrate that the dense rock and ice core material displaced by an impact would quickly resettle, leaving a distinct boundary with the outer layers of hydrogen and helium, rather than forming a smooth transition zone between the two regions. Reflecting on the findings, lead author of the study, Dr. Thomas Sandnes of Durham University, said, "It's fascinating to explore how a giant planet like Jupiter we respond to one of the most violent events a growing planet can experience. And we see in our simulations that this kind of impact literally shakes the planet to its core, just not in the right way to explain the interior of Jupiter that we see today. Jupiter isn't the only planet with a dilute core, as scientists have recently found evidence that Saturn has one too." Dr. Louis Teodoro of the University of Oslo said the fact that Saturn also has a dilute core strengthens the idea that these structures are not the result of rare, extremely high energy impacts, but instead form gradually during the long process of planetary growth and evolution. The findings of this study could also help inform scientists' understanding and interpretation of the many Jupiter and Saturn-sized exoplanets that have been observed around distant stars. If dilute cores aren't made by rare and extreme impacts, then perhaps most or all of these planets have comparatively complex interiors. Co-author of the study, Dr. Jacob Kegerels, said, "Giant impacts are the key part of many planets' histories, but they can't explain everything." This project also accelerated another step in our development of new ways to simulate these cataclysmic events in ever greater detail, helping us to continue narrowing down how the amazing diversity of worlds we see in the solar system and beyond came to be. All right, back to net, WB5OZL.
Thank you, Brenda. Jupiter is a big topic, isn't it? You're supposed to be laughing about that. Tony warned you about this. Slide Master, slide number 2. The feature topic is picked by the net control. That would be me. Usually this time of year I talk about the solar activity called the Carrington event that happened on September the 1st, 1859. That caused aurora that could be seen as far south as the Caribbean. And the Carrington event actually destroyed telegraph communications across at least the northern hemisphere. But in May of this year, I covered an event that is estimated to be an event that was 10 times larger than the Carrington event in either the years 774 or 775 AD, as determined by tree ring research. After more research was done, more of these events were found by researchers in the year 12,450 BC, 7,176 BC, 5,259 BC, and the year 664 to 663 BC, and also 993 AD. All of these are called the Mayak events. Well, since I've recently covered these events, I'm just going to use What's Up segment and the Constellation of the Week segment as our featured topic. Guess what's up next is What's Up. Hang on just a minute. I need to scroll through the script. Slide map, we're up to slide number 3. And this is KF5JHA, and this is Skynet. We call this segment of Skynet What Is Up because it's all about what's gone on astronomically over the last couple of weeks and what will take place over the next couple of weeks and beyond. Slide master, slide number 4. We've talked about the predicted nova of the star T Corona Borealis, which may erupt at any time. It is currently at a brightness of around 10th magnitude, which is much too faint to be able to see with just your 2 eyes. T Corona Borealis was supposed to have gone nova more than a year ago. There are new predictions. One is November the 10th of this year, 2025, or June the 25th of 2026. Who knows what's going to happen. But when it does go a nova, T Corona Borealis could become as bright as the North Star, which is 2nd magnitude. Now, I can see the North Star with just my 2 eyes from my very light-polluted location in Mesquite. Slide master, slide number 5, please. Since I was submitting my information so late today, the image of the sun just came from, well, today, spaceweather.com. The large sunspot complexes on the sun at times are so large that you can just use your solar eclipse glasses to see them. Now, if it's clear tomorrow, you might want to go out and try it because there's a couple of large sunspot complexes that are on the sun right now. The sun is near its 11-year solar maximum. We're not quite sure when the solar maximum will occur or until it actually happens in past time. I just talked about the solar cycle about 5 months ago on Skynet. That was about 4 months ago. Slide master, slide number 6. So the new moon was on August 23rd. So the current phase of the moon is the waxing crescent. On August the 29th, that was yesterday, the moon was at its apogee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is furthest from the Earth at a distance of 404,548 kilometers. Tomorrow on August 31st, the moon is at first quarter phase. Almost looks like it is now. Full moon is on September the 7th. On September the 10th, the moon is at perigee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is closest to the Earth at a distance of 364,777 kilometers. Too many sevens in a row. Slide master, slide number 7. On August the 30th, that's tonight, conjunction of the moon and Antares in the southwestern evening sky. Maybe you can see them through the holes in the clouds. I haven't been outside for a little while. You might be able to see them. Slide master, slide number 8. So tomorrow night on August the 31st through September the 1st is the peak of the Auriga meteor shower with about half a dozen meteors per hour. Now most of the time you'll see the majority of the meteors, well quite a few of them, the hour before dawn. To get a detailed information about how to observe meteors and meteor showers, you can visit the International Meteor Organization at imo.net or the American Meteor Society at amsmeteors.org. Slide master, slide number 9. So on September the 1st, in the eastern morning sky, a conjunction of Venus and the star cluster M44, the Beehive star cluster, will take place. If you get a pair of binoculars out, you'll see the star cluster and the planet Venus in the same field of view. Should be very interesting to see. If you're in very, very dark skies away from the city lights, you usually can see M44 with just your 2 eyes, but with Venus being so bright next to it, you might not see it. But binoculars, you might be able to see it easily in the city. Slide master, slide number 10. On September the 2nd, there's a conjunction of Mercury and Regulus in the east-northeastern morning sky that you can see. Slide master, slide number 11. On September the 8th, the Moon and Saturn and Neptune are in conjunction in the east-southeastern evening sky. You'll need a telescope to observe Neptune. Can't use just binoculars, need a telescope to see Neptune. And a good star map would help you out. I use Stellarium. You can get Stellarium free at stellarium.org. Slide master, slide number 12. On September the 12th, the Moon and M45, the Pleiades star cluster, in conjunction in the south-southwestern morning sky with the planet Uranus very close by. You'll need at least a pair of binoculars, if not a telescope, to observe Uranus. Right on the edge of visibility if you're away from the city lights. Slide master, slide number 13. On September the 12th, the planet Mars and the bright star Spica, which is the brightest star in Virgo, are in conjunction in the evening west-southwestern sky. Talk about a couple more events. Slide master, slide number 14. On September 16th, there's a conjunction of the Moon, Jupiter, and Pollux in the eastern morning sky. Have you been watching the dance of the planets in the morning sky? I get up early, do some walking. So a few days ago, Jupiter and Venus were very close together. That was about 10 days ago. I shared on Skynet some pictures that I took over a 3-day period of time with just my phone. But it'll be interesting to keep on watching them. Slide master, slide number 15. On September the 19th, there's a conjunction of the Moon, Venus, and Regulus. That's visible in the eastern morning sky. Slide master, slide number 16. On September the 22nd at 1:19 p.m. Central Daylight Time is the autumnal equinox for the Northern Hemisphere. Now, what's interesting about that is everywhere on the Earth has 12 hours of daylight and 12 hours of darkness that day. Also, the sun rises directly east and sets directly west everywhere on the Earth. But it's the first day of spring for the Southern Hemisphere. Maybe we need to talk about that sometime. This is Kilo Foxtrot 5, Juliet Hotel Alpha, and this is Skynet. Slide master, slide number 17. Now, do any of you out there in Radio Land have any questions or need a fill on any of the information I've given you? Or maybe you just have a general astronomy question. Come now with your call sign if you have a question or need a fill. Okay, not hearing anything. Slide master, slide number 18. So, as the moon waned last weekend, so do these words for this segment of Skynet. Stay safe, keep well, pray for a world that's the only one where humans live right now. And until the next segment that I'm going to cover later on, keep looking up so you know what's up. And this is KF5JJ, and this is Skynet, transmitting on the W5FC repeater at 146.88 megahertz. Let's see now, what do we have next? Oh, we have Gus. Gus, W5GUS. I like your call sign. US, Space Exploration and Space History. Gus, it's all yours.
Okay, thank you, Chaz. Yes, and the equinoxes would be a good topic for a future portion. This is W5GUS with space exploration news. A couple interesting tidbits here, and they're both involving the James West Space Telescope. Okay, for the first time in history, the James Webb Space Telescope, JWST, confirmed the presence of steam on a handful of sub-Neptunes. Astronomers expect the telescope to observe dozens more, which is why such models are critical to connect what we see from an exoplanet's surface to what is inside of them. The models historically used to characterize sub-Neptunes were developed to study the icy moons in our solar system, such as Jupiter's moon, Europa, and Saturn's moon Enceladus. Sophisticated models can help interpret what space telescopes like JWST reveal about sub-Neptunes. Icy moons are small, condensed bodies with layered structures, icy crusts over liquid water oceans, basically. Sub-Neptunes are much different. They're vastly more massive, 10 to 100 times as massive, and more. They orbit much closer to their stars, so they don't have icy crust and liquid oceans like Europa or Enceladus. Instead, they develop thick steam atmospheres and layers of supercritical water. This exotic supercritical phase of water, has been recreated and studied in laboratories on Earth, exhibiting behavior that is far more complex than simple liquid water or ice, thus making it difficult to model accurately. Some models even suggest that under extreme pressure and temperatures conditions inside sub-Neptunes, water may even transform into what they call super ionic ice, which is a phase in which water molecules reorganize so hydrogen ions move freely through oxygen lattice. So, to model sub-Neptunes, researchers need to understand how water behaves as pure steam, as supercritical fluid, and extreme states like superionic ice. This team's model accounts for the experimental data on the physics of water under extreme conditions and advances the theoretical modeling that is required. They say the interiors of planets are natural laboratories for studying conditions that are difficult to reproduce in a university laboratory here on Earth. What we learn could have unforeseen applications we haven't even considered. The water worlds are especially exotic in this sense, they explain. In the future, we may find that a subset of these water worlds represent new niches for life in the galaxy. All right, and the second story is about blazing cool gemstones and fiery grime, blazing rainbows in space, hints at Earth's origins. That was the headline. Okay, the glorious guts of a dying star are the means by which astronomers are hoping to discover the very earliest origins of how our planet was born. In the midst of the Butterfly Nebula, which is NGC 6302, located some 3,400 light years from Earth in the southern constellation of Scorpius, astronomers have found compelling evidence of dust crystallizing as it cools from hot gas. For years, scientists have debated how cosmic dust forms in space, but now, with the help of the powerful James Webb Space Telescope, we may finally have a clearer picture, says astrophysicist Maiko Matsuura of Cardiff University in the UK. He says, quote, "We were able to see both cool gemstones formed in calm, long-lasting zones and fiery grime created in violent, fast-moving parts of space, all within a single object. This discovery is a big step forward in understanding how the basic materials of planets come together. Cosmic dust is what it sounds like. Dust that drifts around the space between the stars. It's thought to form primarily in the outer layers of dying stars, seeding the nebular material that is taken up into newly forming stars like the worlds that orbit them." All right, now we'll move on to space-related birthdays between August 24th and August 30th. August 24th, 1944, Gregory Jarvis was born. He was on STS-51 Challenger. August 24th, 1946, Richard Richards was on STS-28, STS-41, STS-50, STS-64. And August 24th, 1949, Anna Lee Fisher was born. She was on STS-51A. August 24th, 1960, Steve Lindsay, STS-87, 95, 104, 121, and STS-133. Okay. August 24th, 1962, Mary Ellen Webster, STS-70, STS-101. And August 25th, 1965, Andrew Fustel was born. August 25th, 1965, STS-125, STS-134, and Soyuz MS-08. Lee Archambault was born August 25th, 1960. He was STS-117, STS-119. Okay, August 26th, 1932, Joe Engle, X-15, Flight 138, X-15, Flight 143, and X-15, Flight 153. He was an alternate and crew member of STS-2 and STS-51-1. Okay, August 26, 1942, John Blaha, STS-29, STS-33, STS-34, 58, and 79. Catherine P. Heyer, August 26, 1959. She was on STS-90, STS-130. And August 28, 1960, Leroy Chao, STS-65, STS-72, STS-92, Soyuz TMA-5. And let's see, August 29th, Thomas Marshburn, 1960. August 29th, STS-127, Soyuz TMA, Expedition 3435, and SpaceX Crew 3, Expedition 6667. Okay, August 29th, 1948, Charles D. Walker. August 29th, STS-41, STS-51, STS-61. And August 30th, Jack Swigert. He was 1931, August 30th, 1931, on Apollo 13. All right, also on August 30th, the last birth date, K. Megan MacArthur, August 30th, 1971. She was on STS-125, SpaceX Crew 2, Expedition 65 and 66. Okay, next we'll go into This Week in Space History. Got a couple interesting things here. August 24th, 2006. Y'all probably will remember this. August 24th, 2006, Pluto was demoted from a planetary status. For 76 years, school children were taught that our solar system had 9 planets. On August 24th, 2006, Pluto lost its planetary status, and the world's perception of our solar system changed. The International Astronomical Union, or the IAU, is the official entity responsible for naming and classifying all bodies in outer space. And when they met in Prague, Czech Republic, in August 2006, there was a vigorous debate about the definition of objects in our solar system. At the end of the meeting, the IAU voted to classify a planet as a celestial body that A, is in orbit around the sun, B, has sufficient mass for its self-gravity to force it to be a nearly round shape, and C, has cleared the neighborhood around its orbit. Pluto meets the first 2 criteria, but not the third, so it falls into the new category of dwarf planet. While the definition of a planet remained the same for most of the 20th century, objects in our solar system have been recategorized before. For example, Ceres was originally classified as a planet, but was later redesignated as an asteroid. Under the new definition, it is now a dwarf planet. All right, we'll move on to August 25th, 2003. The Spitzer Space Telescope was launched from Cape Canaveral. It was the 4th and final of the NASA Great Observatories program. It was named for astronomer Lyman Spitzer, who first promoted the concept of a space telescope in the 1940s. The planned mission was to be 2.5 years. The mission ended on January 30th, 2020. Okay, on August 26th, there was a birthday that was not included prior this evening. It's the birthday of NASA research mathematician Katherine Johnson. She was so notable, they wanted to separate her from the list of regular birthdays here. August 26, 1918, birthday of NASA research mathematician Katherine Johnson, whose story is recounted in Margaret Lee Shetterly's book, Hidden Figures, was one of the women who worked on the computations for early space flights. From a young age, Catherine was on track to make history, graduating from high school at 14 and graduating college at 18. She worked as a teacher and stay-at-home mother for a number of years. Then in 1953, she began working for the NACA as one of the female mathematicians known as computers. At NASA's Langley Research Center, she calculated trajectories for Alan Shepard and John Glenn's Mercury missions. Her work in orbital rendezvous calculations was fundamental to the success of the Apollo lunar missions. Johnson worked as a mathematician for NASA until 1986. In 2015, President Barack Obama awarded her a Medal of Freedom, which is the America's highest civilian honor. She passed away February 24th, 2020, at the age of 101. Okay, and there's another entry here for August 26th annually. Every August 26th is International Dog Day. The year we want to remember Belka and Strelka, Russian astronaut dogs who were the first living beings to go into space and return. But they had company on that flight. There was 40 mice, 2 rats, a rabbit, some fruit flies, and plants. They were all launched August 19th, 1960 in a Sputnik 5 capsule. Later, Strelka had a daughter named Pushinka that was gifted or given to First Lady Jacqueline Kennedy. Strelka later had 4 puppies, which were given away. All right, and August 26th, 1962, launch of Mariner 2. Was an American space probe to Venus. It was the first robotic space probe to report successfully from a planetary encounter, the first successful spacecraft in NASA's Mariner program. It was a simplified version of the Block 1 spacecraft of the Ranger program and an exact copy of Mariner 1. En route to Venus, Mariner 2 measured the solar wind, which is a constant stream of charged particles flowing outwards from the sun, and confirming the measurements by Luna 1 in 1959. It also measured interplanetary dust, which turned out to be scarcer than predicted. In addition, Mariner 2 detected high-energy charged particles coming from the sun, including several brief solar flares, as well as cosmic rays from outside the solar system. As it flew by Venus on December 14th, 62, Mariner 2 scanned the planet with its pair of radiometers, revealing that Venus has cool clouds and extremely hot surface. Okay, and August 28, 1964 was the launch of Nimbus 1. Also, Nimbus 1, also called Nimbus A, was launched on August 28, 64 by a Thor Agena rocket from Vandenberg Air Force Base in California. It functioned nominally until September 22nd, 64. It entered Earth's atmosphere on May 16th, 1974, the first in a series of second-generation meteorological research and development satellites. It was designed to serve as a stabilized Earth-oriented platform for the testing of meteorological sensors and systems for collecting meteorological data. Okay, that looks like it for this report. So we'll go on to back to Chaz for Miss Carolyn's Constellations of the Week. W5GUS, back to you, Chaz.
Thank you so much, Gus. Gus, I think you've been signing into Skynet since almost the beginning, if not 2012, shortly thereafter anyway. But recently, the last few months, you've been a presenter. So we thank you so much for taking up the mantle and helping us carry the load every week on Skynet. I remember August the 24th, 2006. You see, I started my current job at the Dallas College on the 21st day of August 20006. 3 days later, Pluto was demoted, so I remember both dates pretty easily. All right, Slide Master, slide number 19. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week is named in honor of Silent Key Carolyn, KC50ZT. Carolyn contributed to Skynet each week, almost from its beginning in 2012 until May of 2019, with a detailed look at one particular constellation each week. Since there are about 52 easily visible constellations seen in Texas throughout the year out of the 88 total number of constellations, so Ms. Carolyn covered the entire sky as seen over North Texas in a year. And in her honor, we've continued that tradition of a constellation per week and named this segment after her. Ms. Carolyn's Constellation of the Week this week, actually it's a two-for. It's Vulpecula, the little fox, and Sagitta, the arrow. Slide Master, slide number 20, one of the most important parts of Skynet, the jokes of the week. If you're over on Echolink, you can boo and hiss, and I can see your boos and hisses over there about the jokes. If you're on radio, you'll just have to boo and hiss into the microphone, but I'll never hear it because I'll be talking over you. So here we go. How can you tell if an arrow is nervous? Remember, these are related to the constellations, okay? You can see if it quivers. Oh, yeah, okay. Why does the arrow on the computer screen use a lot of profanity? Because it's a cursor. How do you improve your archery? With better aerodynamics. Oh, and now the other constellation. Why were the foxes hunting rabbits? Because they were in the mood for fast food. Why was the fox stuck in the past? Because it was a 20th century fox. Well, come on, that's funny. If you've watched TV at all, you know what that one is. And finally, the last one. Where did the fox go to buy a new tail? To the retail store. And this is Chaz, and this is KF5JHA. Slide Master, slide number 21. I've heard it pronounced Sagitta and Sagitta. I'll probably use it interchangeably during this segment. This constellation has been described as an arrow since ancient times by various cultures. The arrow itself is linked to various myths, but the most often cited one is the arrow that Hercules used to kill the eagle sent by Zeus to torture Prometheus for giving the gift of fire to man. That's a segment and a half. Slide Master, slide number 22. Sham, which is Alpha Sagitta, the name Sham is derived from the Arabic al-Sham, which means the arrow. Although Sham is designated as Alpha Sagitta, it is actually the third brightest star in the constellation. Alpha usually is the brightest, Beta is the second, Gamma would be the third. It's a star that's magnitude 4.4. The brightest in Sagitta is Gamma Sagitta, which its magnitude is 3.5. Gamma is the star that forms the arrow's head. Sham is the other end of the era, forming part of the arrow's fletchings, or the feathers. Slide Master, slide number 23. Messier object, or M, number 71, is generally considered to be a globular cluster today, though for decades there was controversy over whether it was a dense open cluster or a loose globular cluster. In binoculars, M71 can be carefully picked out of the Milky Way background as a small, faint glow. Slide Master, slide number 24. NGC, which stands for New General Catalog 6886, is a planetary nebula. It is one of those many planetary nebulas that are so small that they look like stars until you really crank up the magnification. Large aperture help, like Dave Hutchinson's 16-inch Dobsonian. With his scope, Dave writes that he is fairly confident that he has found it. At 300 power, it appears to be a non-stellar object. Slide Master, slide number 25. This is KF5, JHA, this is Skynet, and this is Chaz. The constellation of Vulpecula, the fox, was originally created in the year 1687 by Polish astronomer Helios to fill in some of the spaces between Cygnus and Sagitta. If you arrange all 88 constellations alphabetically, Vulpecula is the very last one on the list, so it appears to be at the very end of the last volume of Burnham's Celestial Handbook. Vulpecula is the 55th constellation in size and occupies an area of 268 square degrees. Slide Master, slide number 26. Alpha Vulpeculae, also known as 6 Vulpeculae, is a red giant star that is about 250 light years away. It shows at magnitude 4.4 as seen from the Earth. In binoculars, a companion star can be seen that's not noticeable to the unaided eye. This is a star 8 Vulpeculae, an orange giant star that shines at magnitude 5.8. You can see it in binoculars, but it's hard to see with just your two eyes. The two stars form a visual double only. They are not a true binary system. This star was an easy split in an 80mm short focal length refractor, which is about the same as typical binoculars. In the scope, Alpha looked yellow, while Vulpecula 8 looked yellow-orange. So next is a trivia or a pop quiz. So what is the proper name for Alpha Orionis? That'll be Betelgeuse or Betelgeuse. What is the proper name for Alpha Leonis? That would be Regulus. What is the proper name for Alpha Lyra? That would be Vega. Alpha Vulpecula also has a proper name. Anyone want to guess what it is? Come down with your call sign if you think you know what the answer is. I already gave you the answer. The proper name for Alpha Vulpecula is Answer. Answer is the Latin for goose, which derives the fact that the original name for the constellation was Vulpecula cum Answer, the little fox with a goose. Indeed, early pictorial star atlases showed this constellation with a drawing of a fox bearing a goose in its mouth. So one more time, what's the proper name for Alpha Vulpecula? Answer. So you might say the question answers itself. Yeah, Tony warned you about the puns and jokes that are embedded in here. Slide Master, slide number 27. Colander 399, also known as the coat hanger or Brockie's cluster. The coat hanger can be seen with the unaided eye from dark sky locations as an unresolved patch of light. It is easily resolved into its distinctive coat hanger shape with even the smallest of telescopes and binoculars, or even a finder scope. It looks great in an 80mm short focal length refractor. And a Dynamax 8 at 41 power, that's the lowest power. It takes about 3 fields of view side by side to see all of it. The 6 stars in the hook area easily fill the field of view in the Dynamax 8 at 41 power. In this respect, the coat hanger is somewhat like the Pleiades, an object that is best viewed at very low power, wide-angled instruments, wide-field instruments like binoculars. For many years, the coat hanger was believed to be an open star cluster, but recent studies have shown that it is not a true cluster after all, but is really, in reality, just a chance alignment of stars. Slide Master, slide number 28. Now, do you want to look for something dumb? Yep, M27 is the iconic Dumbbell Nebula, discovered by Charles Messier himself in July of 1764. Burnham's Celestial Handbook describes M27 as the most conspicuous planetary nebula in the entire sky for some small instruments, with a total magnitude of about 8. It may be easily found in large binoculars. I've seen it in my 20 by 80 binoculars. The large apparent size of the nebula classifies it as one of the nearest planetarias. Current estimates of the distance places it at about 815 light years away. And this is KF5, JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 29. Now there's a few more Astronomical League observing program objects in the constellations of Vulpecula, the Little Fox, and Sagitta, the Arrow. I've just given you a sampling of some of those objects. The Astronomical League has, at last count, I was told, 96 different observing programs. Some of them have subcategories, but most of which have about 100 objects in them. If you observe just 10 different objects on an observing program each month, then you can earn an observing certificate and a pin in about a year from the Astronomical League. Slide Master, slide number 30, and that is Ms. Carolyn's Constellation of the Week, Vulpecula, the Little Fox, and Sagitta, the Arrow. I want to thank my friends Dave Hutchinson and Dennis Harwell for their research and words on deep sky objects that I use, borrow, and steal for every Skynet. I also at times use the website constellation-guide.com for information. Now next week we'll take a look at Cygnus the Swan. That'll be interesting. This is KF5, JJ, and this is Chaz. You know, we haven't done a check-in recently, and I looked over here in the electronic check-in, and I see Brian K9AHO. Are there any radio check-ins that would like to check into Skynet right now? Come now with your call sign slowly, phonetically, your name and your location if you'd like to check in now to Skynet. Well, eliminating all the duplicates, I have some people sign in 3 different ways, but eliminating all those duplicates, I believe there's 19 people that have checked in so far tonight, Skynet. That's including yours truly, yes. So, Tom, KE5ICX, space launches for the week, and also visible satellite passages. You got plenty of time. Take your time. Give us all that information. This is KF5JHA.
All right, well, thank you, Chaz, and thank you for doing the net tonight. You've been in overtime, so go get your glass of water. You probably need it. Okay, space launches for this week and probably beyond. This information comes from spaceflightnow.com/launch schedule. You can go in there, and it is updated daily, actually probably more than multiple times a day. We have coming up tomorrow a Falcon 9 launch, Starlink 10-14. This will launch from SOC 40 at Cape Canaveral in Florida. This will launch 28 V2 mini satellites into low Earth orbit, a little less than 8.5 minutes after liftoff. Everybody together, the Falcon 9 first stage booster, tail number, now you give them tail numbers, B1077, launching for the 23rd time, will target a landing on a drone ship. Just read the instructions, positioned in the Atlantic Ocean. September 2nd or 3rd, overnight, we have another Falcon 9, Starlink 17-8. This from SLC-4E at Vandenberg, out in California. Will launch 24 Starlink V2 satellites into low Earth orbit. 8.5 minutes later, the first stage booster, tail number B1097, making its debut, will target a landing on the drone ship. Of course, I Still Love You, positioned in the Pacific Ocean. September 3rd, Falcon 9, launch of Starlink 10-22. This from SLC-40 at Cape Canaveral. 28 Starlink V2 mini satellites in low Earth orbit. Less than 8 minutes later, after liftoff, the Falcon 9 first stage booster B1083, launching for the 14th time, will target a landing on the drone ship, a short fall of gravitas, positioned in the Atlantic Ocean. September 4th, Falcon 9, Starlink 10-57. Sound familiar? This time, launch complex 39A at Kennedy. The Falcon 9 rocket will launch 28 Starlink V2 mini satellites into low Earth orbit, a little less than 8.5 minutes after liftoff. Falcon 9 first stage booster, tail number B1069, launching for the 27th time, will target a landing on the drone ship. Just read the instructions in the Atlantic. September 6th, the Falcon 9, here we go, Starlink 17-9. This will launch from SLC-4E at Vandenberg. The Falcon 9 rocket will launch 24 Starlink V2 mini satellites into low Earth orbit, nearly 8.5 minutes after liftoff. The first stage booster, this one numbered B1075, flying for the 20th time, will target a landing on the drone ship. Of course, I Still Love You, positioned in the Pacific Ocean. September 15th, Falcon 9, something different, NG-23. This will launch from SLC-40 in Florida. This is the Cygnus spacecraft from Northrop Grumman on a resupply mission to the International Space Station. This will be the 22nd launch of the Cygnus spacecraft and the first launch of the Cygnus XL, which is capable of carrying 1,250 kilograms more cargo than the previous version of the Cygnus spacecraft. You'll like this. The spacecraft is named the SS William Willie C. McCool. Coming up. September 23rd, Falcon 9 IMAC mission, launch complex 39A at Kennedy. Falcon 9 rocket will launch a rideshare mission carrying 2 spacecraft for NASA, one for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA. The primary payload for NASA's Interstellar Mapping and Acceleration Probe, or IMAP, will use its 10 science instruments to study the boundary of the Sun's heliosphere. Along for the ride are NASA's Carruthers Geocorona Observatory, designed to observe the ultraviolet light from Earth's geocorona, and NOAA's Space Weather Follow-on Lagrange 1, or SWFOL1, which will monitor the Sun for key space weather activity. All 3 spacecraft will be sent to the Lagrange point L1, which is about 1.5 million kilometers from Earth and is positioned between the Earth and the Sun. Okay, next up I'm going to give you ISS passes and the 2 space stations, including Tiangong. For the ISS, we have a number of really good passes. There's actually several triple passes. I'm not going to list those. I'm going to list the most attractive passes, but multiple evenings this week, you are able to see at least 2, sometimes 3 passes of the International Space Station. Of those, September 3rd, we have a good one, minus 2.0 magnitude at 6:28 a.m. Out of the north-northwest, reach its highest point at 6:31 at 34 degrees, and it'll fall at 6:31 to the east-southeast. That one goes into shadow. September 5th has a good pass, minus 3.8 magnitude. This is at 6:27 a.m. It reaches highest point at 69 degrees at 6:31. It will follow the southeast at 6:34. Then we have September 5th. Did I read that one? Let's see here. I'm trying to see. Yeah. So September 6th is the next one, minus 3.2 magnitude at 5:40 a.m. Out of the north-northwest, it reaches highest point at 57 degrees at 5:42, and it will fall to the east-southeast at 5:45. We have another pass September 7th, minus 1.3 magnitude at 4:54 a.m. Out of the east-northeast, it will reach its highest point at 23 degrees at 4:54. It will fall to the east-southeast at 4:56. And then there's, let's see, actually on September 7th there are 3 passes. The third pass is actually in the evening. This is minus 2.7 magnitude at 21:29 in the evening out of the southwest. Reaches highest point at 40 degrees at 21:31, and it'll go into shadow at 40 degrees at that same location. Then we have September 8th. We have a pass minus 2.3 magnitude, 5:42 a.m. This one also out of shadow and into the south-southeast at 5:44, so 2-minute pass. We have one final one on September 8th. That's the second pass, minus 3.7 magnitude. This one's in the evening, 2040. In the evening, it'll reach its highest point at 51 degrees at 2043, and it'll fall to the east-northeast at 2046. So if you're interested in multiple passes to the International Space Station, perhaps you'd like to use the automated AMSAT setup and radio. I don't know if it's configured for relay or for repeater use, but it could be. You can check that, amsatnet.com, for information on that. Okay, next up is Tiangong Space Station. This one also has some fairly decent passes. We have, I'm checking my time here too, September 31st, tomorrow, minus 1.6 magnitude at 6:13 a.m. So you may be able to see both the ISS and Tiangong on the same mornings because they are passing pretty close to one another as far as time is concerned. 6:13 a.m. reaches highest point at 6:16 and 60 degrees, so nice pass, and it'll fall to the east-southeast at 6:19. We have another pass, minus 2.1 magnitude, September 2nd, 5:56 in the morning. It'll reach its highest point at 5:58 at 64 degrees once again, and it'll fall to the south-southwest at 6:01. We have September 7th, we'll jump to them, minus 2.0 magnitude, 4 degrees, and it will fall to the east at 39 degrees at 2056. All this information available at heavensabove.com. You can go ahead and plug in your longitude, latitude, or your city address, and then it will automatically keep that information. You can also log in under name if you'd like. It does use cookies, so it will remember your position, but if you want to, you can log in from anywhere on any computer, and it will remember you by your login. No purchase necessary. Back to you, Chaz, KE5, ICX.
Normal state.
You, Tom. And if you want, you can put in multiple locations. For example, I can put in a location for where I live. I can put in a location for where I work. I can put in a location where I visit my family in Ohio. With the satellite, it doesn't matter. You just specify which location you want to look at the satellite passages, and it'll do that. Well, let's see now. We're getting close to the end, so let's take additional check-ins. I don't see anything on the electronic check-ins on W5FC.org. I don't see any additional check-ins over on Echolink. So if you'd like to get a check-in, this would be probably the final call. If you'd like to check into Skynet tonight, Please come now, slowly, phonetically, with your call sign and your name and your location.
Operational,
This
and all my
will be the
circuits are
last
functional.
opportunity for you to log
Afterglow
in
Movie Net.
and get credit for tonight's Skynet.
Kilo Juliet 5, Juliet Alpha Kilo, Nick.
Juliet Alpha Kilo, Nick, where are you located?
Just north of McKinney.
We'll call you Collin County. How's that sound? Okay, thank you so much, Nick. Well, that makes number 20. We have 20 people that have checked in for Skynet tonight. Let's see now. What else do I need to do? I'm looking at the script. I'm scrolling down. Yep, we have a script. I think I told you that. Let's see now. Oh, yes, tonight we've had 20 check-ins. I hope you'll be joining us next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space exploration, those kind of things. On this net, the sky is never the limit. We're also looking for net control stations for this and all the Dallas Amateur Radio Club nets. If you would like to try your hand at, you could, as a net control, you can contact any of the net controls by sending an email at nets@w5fc.org. If I can do this, you can do this. You can follow topics and discussions about this net and astronomy in general at the Facebook and the X, as well as our audio and video streams, video archives, and other useful internet resources by going to w5fc.org at the conclusion of this net, which is almost imminent. Now, next Saturday night, until next Saturday night, this is Kilo Foxtrot 5, Juliet Hotel Alpha, Chaz, and I'll be closing this net at, 22:31 in a few seconds, local time, and returning this repeater to normal amateur use. 73, everyone, and enjoy the evening discovering the universe. Good night.
And we'll be back for the Afterglow Movie Net in about 5 minutes. Thank you, Chaz. 5 minutes, so you got enough time to make some popcorn in the microwave. Come on back and we'll discuss the movie from 1955, Conquest of Space. KE5 right here.
NT5TM testing concluded. This is Tony, NT5TM.
Probably already know this, Tony, but the first and the third transmissions were okay, but that second transmission was really noisy. This is KF5JHA.
Oh, okay. Well, hopefully this one is fine. NT5TM.
KI5 W5FC. We read you, Lima Charlie. When does the afterglow begin, glowing?
In about 3 minutes. KE5ICX. All right, rush back to the radio. It's time. Bring your popcorn over, rip open that little package. Be careful, steam is hot, and eat some really bad stuff for you. Microwave popcorn. No, I don't have any in front of me. I would normally, but I have nice dinner tonight. Okay, tonight's movie is called Conquest from Space. Try again. Conquest of Space from 1955. It's an American Technicolor science fiction film, Paramount Pictures, produced by George Pal. Yes, that George Pal. Directed by Byron Haskin and stars Walter Brooke, Eric Fleming, and Nikki Shaughnessy. The story concerns the first interplanetary flight to Mars, carrying a crew of 5 and launched from Earth near the Wheel, humankind's first space station. On their long journey, they encounter various dangers, both from within and without, that nearly destroy the mission and the movie. So here's some of the, let's see how long, that's too long. We're not going to, let me just give you the first paragraph or two. This is off the wiki on this. It says, humankind has achieved spaceflight capability and built the Wheel space station in orbit at 1,075 miles above Earth. It's commanded by designer Colonel Samuel T. Merritt. His son, Captain Barney Merritt, had been aboard for a year and wants to return to Earth. A giant spaceship has been built in a nearby orbit, and the Earth inspector arrives aboard the station with new orders. Merritt Sr. is being promoted to general and will command the new spaceship, now being sent to Mars instead of the moon. General Merritt considers his crew of 3 enlisted men and 1 officer, and his close friend Sergeant Mahoney volunteers. The general turns him down for being 20 years too old. Hearing that Mars is the new destination, Barney Merritt volunteers to be the 2nd officer. They watch the broadcast with family and friends. The mission blasts off. Captain's undiagnosed and growing space fatigue is beginning to seriously affect his judgment. Reading the Bible frequently, he doubts about the righteousness of the mission. After launch, Sergeant Mahoney is discovered to be a stowaway, having hidden in a crew spacesuit. They're piloting radar antenna fails. True crewmen go outside to make repairs. Sound familiar? AE-35, I'm sure. They manage to get it working just as their monitors show a glowing planetoid coming at them. The general fires the rockets, barely managing to avoid the collision, but the planetoid's fast-orbiting debris punctures Sergeant Footer's spacesuit, killing him instantly. After religious service in space, Footer's body is cast adrift and into the void. Months later, the general is becoming increasingly mentally unbalanced, focusing on Footer's loss as God's judgment. On the Mars landing approach, he attempts to crash their spaceship, now convinced the mission violates the laws of God. Barney wrests control away from his father, landing the large flying wing glider rocket safely. Later, the crew takes its first steps on Mars. Its members look up and see water pouring down in the now vertical return rocket. Barney quickly discovers the leak has sabotaged caused by his father, who threatens his son with a .45 semi-automatic, very specific here. The two struggle, and then this pistol discharges, killing the general. Sergeant Mahoney, who observed only the last stages of the struggle, wants Barney confined under arrest under the threat of court-martial, but cooler heads prevail. Barney becomes the ranking officer. Mars proves to be inhospitable. They struggle to survive with their decreased water supply. Earth's correct orbital position for return trip is 1 year away. While glumly celebrating their first Christmas on Mars, a sudden snowstorm blows in. Of course it does, allowing them to replenish their water supply. Hooray! As their launch window arrives, they hear low rumbling sounds. They see rocks falling and feel the ground shake violently. The ground level shifts during this violent Mars quake. The spaceship is now leaning at a precarious angle, cannot make an emergency blast-off. To right the spaceship, the crew uses the rocket engine's powerful thrust to shift the ground under the landing legs. The attempt works and they blast off. The ship rises just as the Martian surface completely collapses. Once in space, Barney and Mahoney reconcile. Impressed with Barney's heroism and leadership while on Mars, Mahoney concludes that pursuing Barney's court-martial for his father's death would only impinge the general's reputation, tarnishing what previously had been a spotless military career. Better is the fiction that the man who conquered space died of the line of duty, sacrificing himself to save his crew. The end. And there's a crew of thousands in this thing. Production produced Conquest of Space was intended to be as realistic as possible, depicting the first voyage to Mars. And the tagline for the poster was, "See how it will happen in your lifetime." I guess we didn't, did we? Well, we're still alive, so maybe it will yet. Conquest of Space is from a 1949 nonfiction book by Willie Lee and illustrated by Chesley Bonstell. I probably took that book out 1,000,000 times. George Pell had hired Bonstell to be technical advisor on Destination Moon. This was a huge hit, and Pell used Bonstell again when Worlds Collide. By the way, there's a very good documentary out about his artistic work. It came out about 4 years ago. It's really well done. If I can find the information on it, I'll send it along to you. Okay, so you know the basic information. It does say this, too. I think this is kind of important for us nerd heads. The film also incorporated concepts from von Braun's book, 1952 book, that's Werner von Braun, by the way, The Mars Project, as well as material appearing in Collier's magazine, Can We Get to Mars, from 1954. This will later be incorporated into the 1956 Viking Press book, The Exploration of Mars, by Willie Lee, Werner von Braun, and Chesley Bonstell. All these books mainly feature text that is straight popular science with no fictional characters or storyline. In addition to, according to director Brian Haskin, we had Werner von Braun on the set all the time as a technical advisor. Although the budget was of $1.5 million, George Pell and Paramount decided not to use stars. Walter Brooke turned down a 5-year contract to appear in a soap opera to make the movie. Eric Fleming was pulled out of the 1954. It says New York Times praised the effects, but disparaging the storyline, noting as plots go, it's not offensive. I guess that's putting it nicely. Other things in here, I won't go into them. It's fairly decent discussion. I have a positive thought. There's a whole section on here on the possible impact on Kubrick in 2001: A Space Odyssey. You can read about that. I'm sure it'll come up in conversation tonight. So here's the game. Mostly everybody who knows this will check in, but I'll mention it anyway briefly. For newbies, you're welcome to check in whether you've seen the movie or not. Our discussion is always open to any other films or ideas or things that, ruminations that you may have about space travel or with your call sign, your name, and did you see the film? Again, you don't have to have seen the film to do this, to check in. In fact, we'd like you to let us know you're out there. We'll talk about the plot, followed by the acting and characterization, followed by special effects. So let's go ahead and get started. I will take check-ins. Please come with your call sign, name. Did you see tonight's film? Conquest of Space from 1955. Here we go.
Kilo, India 5, Juliet, Charlie Mike, KI5 JCM, Thomas, and Euless. No, I didn't see it, but I've seen a lot of George Pell films.
November 5, Bravo, Bravo. Bill in Irving? Yes, I saw this film.
This is November Tango 5, Tango Mike. Tony in Dallas. Yes, I saw this movie.
November Victor 5, Foxtrot, Virginia, in Fort Worth. I saw this movie twice.
Kilo 5, Juliet Delta Whiskey, John Costello. I did not see it. I'm just going to hang in the background. Thanks, Paul.
WB5OZL, Brendan Dallas. Yes, I saw this movie.
Pause in the action. Let me go ahead and get folks checked in. I got KI5JCM. Thomas and Euless. No, he didn't see the film, but he has some, he's a Willie Lee, just like Bond stealth fan like I am, so we will call on him for sure. N5BD, Bill and Irving. Yep, he saw the film. NT5TM, Tony in Dallas. Yes, he saw the film. NV5F, Virginia, Fort Worth. Yes, he saw the film not once but twice. K5JDW, John over in Coppell. I think he said he saw the film, but he doesn't want to talk about it. Must have been a bad experience. Oh well. Or maybe not. Who knows? Next is Brenda, WD50ZL. She's over in Dallas, and yes, she saw the film. Additional check-ins, please come now. Well, that's okay. I suspect we may get some additional check-ins a little later on. That's usually how it goes. So we'll go ahead and get started. First off, we'll do the icebreaker. Thomas, KI5JCM. You're just a Bond stealth fan, maybe Willie Lee as well. You want to talk about it a little bit? For me, I love this stuff. I used to check out books with Bond stealth stuff in it over and over and over again. But tell us your experience.
I have always loved cheesy 50s sci-fi since I was really young. So of course I know George Powell. And I just forgot his name. The stop motion guy who did a lot of it too. The original War of the Worlds is one of my all-time favorite films. So I've seen just about everything in that vein. And of course, Mystery Science Theater 3000, the best way to experience some of these movies. I've seen similar things. George Powell always really brought dignity, I guess it was, to sci-fi. And that's one of the reasons I always loved it. In this film, I haven't seen this particular one, but yeah, it definitely sounds right up his alley like a lot of his other work.
Okay, very good. Yeah, I messed up. I thought you said George Powell, and I was thinking Willie Lee, so forgive me there. Yes, George Powell stuff was always good, and Destination Moon is a pretty good film as well. The stop motion guy you're thinking of is Ray Harryhausen. He was really good too, and a favorite on this net. All right, well, very good. Thank you. I agree with you. George Powell is a wonderful director, producer of science fiction films from the 50s, and legitimately so, I think. Next up is Bill, N5BB over in Irving. Bill, your thoughts on the plot for our fine film this evening, Conquest of Space from 1955.
Well, thank you, Tom. This is N5BB. Well, this film kind of has an interesting history in that the name of it is also the name of a book by the famous Willie Ley, and also the artist and designer Chesley Bonestell. Go and read about Chesley Bonestell. He's a very interesting guy. He made drawings of the Golden Gate Bridge, what it was going to look like before they built it, because he was showing money to some investors. He helped design the Chrysler building and a lot of its Art Deco stuff. He's a really interesting guy, and many articles and pictures that he did, magazines like Collier's. And a lot of these pictures were put together in a book called Conquest of Space, and Willie Ley, who is a very famous science fiction author, put together the text to go with these pictures. And they then decided, George Powell decided to make a movie based on the concepts in the book, The Conquest of Space. So the rotating space station, the look of the spacecraft, all these things came from those paintings that were in that earlier book, N5BB Friday. But of course the book, The Conquest of Space, it was all science. It was all science related things. In other words, there were no characters, there was no plot, there was no anything. There were just paintings of what it would look like, maybe, imagine, to go out into space and into Mars. So then they made this movie, and for some reason, they got these, the screenplay people, which 3 different people, or 4 different people actually, and they decided they had to put a lot of melodrama in it, add religious overtones. To me, they kind of ruined the movie. And it had a lot of bad reviews, I think mainly because of the plot, which got kind of screwed up, this melodramatic plot. Now, what do I think? I think the basic concept and idea of the movie was fine. But I did not like the plot and and the characterizations, it was all goofy. And it would have been a much better movie if they hadn't gone overboard on this crazy plot, melodramatic plot. So, with regards to the plot, that's my feeling. I hated the way they put the melodrama in this plot. But the basic concepts of the plot were okay. It's just the melodrama with the particular characters they put in there, and all the characterizations were stupid. You can call me stupid. What else about the plot? The movie, in some areas, was pretty viewable, and we'll talk about special effects later, but in some areas they did an okay job, in some areas it was not good. But for a 1955 sci-fi movie, it had actually pretty good look to it. And it was put together as a real movie. It's just the melodramatic plot was so goofy, it just turned me off greatly. And I think that's it for now, N5BB. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. While you were talking, I was to Google the Conquest of Space, the book. And yes, this is the one that I checked out as a kid from the library many times, from 1947, I think. But anyway, I'm looking at the pictures, and you can go ahead and pick up your copy. It's available for anywhere from $100 to $250. It says Viking Press 1958 is when the book came out. And so there's pictures in here of the various copies that are available on sale or were sold. And this is definitely the book I remember as a kid. So unfortunately, the movie doesn't live up to that. But at any rate, well, that's my opinion. Let's see what others have to say. Tony, NT5TM. Tony, what did you think about the plot for our fine film, Conquest of Space from 1955?
I think Bill praised the plot too highly by calling it melodrama. Because, in a melodrama, yeah, it's silly and, they're being a little over the top. But you at least care. You want to throw a tomato, maybe a two-timing tomato, at the villain. You want the hero and the heroine to fall in love. You care. You may laugh, but you still feel some emotions. And this plot was just extraordinarily unengaging. It was very difficult to care what happened to anyone. I really didn't like the space madness device. I thought it was nowhere near as much fun as, say, the space rabies from Howard the Duck. Generally, space insanity. It can have all sorts of it can make it can do whatever they want. So yeah, I don't even think it lived up to being melodrama. The plot simply did not make me care. I have more mixed reviews about the production design and effects and music, but yeah, I definitely want to throw a rotten tomato at the plot. NT5TM.
All right, thank you, Tony. Yes, I have a feeling you're just warming up. Okay, next is Virginia, ND5F. Virginia, your thoughts on the plot for our film this evening?
Okay, thank you, Tom. Yes, the plot. Well, I could understand what was going on in the plot. I thought that there were some at least interesting relationships and concepts set up in the plot where you've got the guy who's like the friend of the general who's leading the mission, and he wants to go and he gets told he can't, so he stows away, and then the son of the general doesn't want to go on the mission, but he's forced to, and there's obviously like a, you know, kind of a tension between him and his dad, and then you've got the everybody kind of losing it in space, and the accident where the guys go out to do something and one of them gets killed, and then you know, the mission commander general guy gets religion because of that. It's like what someone, I guess you said earlier, someone, and I actually saw something about this on YouTube or something. I didn't watch the video, but it was something along the lines of, or maybe an article about how, you know, this was all the stuff that was ideas that were distilled or something for 2001, and all I can say is this was like a lot of things that kind of ended up in some form, but this was like this movie was illustrating exactly how not to do them, because it was, you know, it was just so over the top, even like the stuff before they left for Mars, you know, just all the way the characters acted, and it was told from a perspective of maybe 8 or 10 years earlier. It all felt like a World War II movie, you know, but it was in color and it was in space. That's kind of what it felt like to me. It was like, you know, just the way all the men acted, you know, in big groups, like they're in the military and they're like, you know, hazing their friends and giving them a hard time because they're all the I guess like the delicate flowers that have been chosen for the mission, so they're all treated differently, and there's all this raucous behavior, and the over-the-top guy, like the Italian sort of guy, he's so over the top. They're just, you know, even if we hadn't been meant to space at that point, it seemed like they would think a little bit about like what kind of personality you need to go into space or something. So it was kind of like a space opera, you know. It just had all these family relationships and dynamics and longtime friend dynamics and religious things and the Christmas miracle of it snowing on Mars and all the sort of stereotype personalities for the characters, and the story was super simple, and there really wasn't any real reason for them to go to Mars, except to say that they were better than they were if they'd gone to the moon, because they just go there and you know, they have a few tribulations and they plant a seed and then get in fights, and the guy has to kill his dad because he's losing his mind, and then there's a Christmas miracle and it snows so that they have water because their ship has lost all its water. So they had the standard sort of space tribulation things, but there didn't seem to be any real good motivation for a lot of it. So I could tell what was going on, and I got kind of the era feel of it. It was still kind of a post-war era, so they had all this, it was like they were on a giant battleship in space, you know, in the space station, and then they were on sort of a submarine in space for the capsule that went to, or the ship that went to Mars. But, you know, I could see where it might have been an influence on later, better science fiction, but I think Destination Moon was a better movie, and it definitely had some impact on our friend Stanley when he made his excellent movie. Speaking of that, all the talk of the Bonestel illustrations, I got out my book. This one's called The 2001 File, and it's about all the illustrations of Harry Laney, and he was a German guy who was an illustrator who with Fred Ordway for Marshall Space Flight Center, and they were both employed to do concept stuff and research for 2001, and it talks about all the influences on 2001 and on Harry Laney, and there's a little section of Bonestell art, and the Conquest of Space stuff is in there. And the book, it dates the book at 1949 is when that book came out. So it has some of the illustrations that Bonestell did for that book, and book covers and magazines and stuff. So, yeah, that artwork has definitely been very influential in science fiction and space stuff. So, yeah, just wanted to throw that in there. But this is a really good book. I read this one from cover to cover, and not too hard because it's a super thick book, but it's once you get past the beginning section, it's mostly just really great artwork. So, anyway, back to that NV5F.
All right, thank you, Virginia. Thanks for that good synopsis. Appreciate it. Let's see, John said he didn't want to be called on, so we won't call on you, John, but be ready. We may ask questions. I know you're out there. Next is Brenda, WD5OZL. Brenda, your thoughts on the plot for our fine film? Conquest of Space from 1955.
This is WB5OZL. I don't know why they didn't bring a woman along. That was very typical of the plots of science fiction movies in those days. And somebody has to make the coffee, after all. I just felt the plot was dumb and contrived. There was no reason to go to Mars, and a lot of these expeditions are so different from real life. You know, they don't take pictures or take samples, or they don't seem to understand the seriousness of what they've done. It's like it's a lark. Not one of these people was a scientist or an astronaut or test pilot or anything. They were no idea why they were chosen to go on this mission. The captain, that was just kind of unreal, the way he got unhinged. You know, how did he get this far and suddenly he went crazy? And it was, to me, that was real uncomfortable. And kind of sad, really. But it was the 50s. There's a lot they didn't know yet about the other planets, and even some of the old classic science fiction books, like Robert Heinlein had a book where they were terraforming Mars and living on Venus, and they just didn't know. So you have to forgive them a little bit that they didn't know what it was like. I just didn't understand. I just think it was foolhardy. You know, at the last minute, let's just take a side trip to Mars while we're at it, without anybody knowing where they're going or how to do it. Or these people were, like in so many of these movies, real short on training and going through the mission. In real life, they go over it and over and over it until they could just practically do it in their sleep. And these people just kind of get on the ship and wing it. All right, that's all I'm going to have to say for now. Back to that, WB5OZL.
All right, thank you, Brenda. And let's see, we're at the bottom of the list. I'll go ahead and ask if there are any additional check-ins. Tonight's movie is The Conquest of Space from 1955. You don't necessarily have to have seen the film, but if you want to discuss it, or aspects of George Powell or Willie or Chesley Bonestell or Werner von Braun, those are all pretty well-known names in these circles on this net. you're welcome to check in as well and discuss that. So, at any rate, if you'd like to join us, please come with your call sign, your name. Did you see tonight's movie?
Kilo Zero Foxtrot Echo Romeo, Chris, currently mobile. I have not seen the movie, and it sounds like I didn't miss much.
This is Whiskey 5, Bacon Lettuce Tomato, W5BLT. Bill, yes, I saw the movie.
Kilo Bravo 9, Sierra Oscar Kilo. Sean in Fort Worth, yes, I did see this movie.
Okie dokie, we picked up 3. We got Chris, K0FER, he's mobile out there. Did not see the film, but you're probably right, you didn't miss much. Although I have to say, some of the spacecraft stuff in here, because it's the Constellations paintings that it's based upon, really is kind of fun to look at. It's visually interesting, although the inside of the space station is ludicrous. It doesn't make much sense, but the rest of it, I love the Mars rocket. The winged rocket is pretty cool in that. So keep that in mind, too. If you do get a chance to see it, just turn the sound down, then you don't have to be bothered with a plot that doesn't make any sense. Okay, let's see here. Chris, do you have anything you'd like to ask or discuss as long as we got you here? I know you're mobile. You're a little scratchy, but I think we can reach you just fine. If you guys have something you want to bring, please do so.
Nothing really to bring. I'm just enjoying listening to the discussion. K0FER, back to that.
All right, very good. And I know you've checked in the past. Drive safe out there. Next up is Bill, W5BLT, Mr. Bacon, Lettuce, and Tomato. What did you think of our fine film tonight from KE5 ICX?
Well, they say a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down, and I think a BLT sandwich along with this movie would have helped the plot. I was kind of disappointed. I expected, since we had the director from War of the Worlds and stuff, I expected, I was kind of excited, and then it just sort of fizzled. You had the, unfortunately they took this plot and decided an easy, slam on Christians and making this guy go crazy, and it just kind of took away from the movie, and none of these guys I would actually really want to go into space with, to tell you the truth. They didn't seem very stable. So that was sad. I was hoping for a good movie, and of course they're all expecting to go to the moon, and then last minute switcheroo, like, okay, we're really going to Mars. One thing, though, is they didn't have the crazy Martian aliens trying to kill them. Of course, they had the crazy guy on the, captain trying to kill them, so I guess that made up for it. I think the asteroid did make noise, or so I guess that was nice, or maybe that was the rocket engine I heard. I guess the visual stuff was pretty good, and we'll get into that later. I did do some reading about it, and I guess the director, I think it was Paramount, the movie company, they kind of had a little bit of difficulty in arguments, I guess, and he decided he didn't want to do a movie for them anymore. So there was that intrigue. But yeah, it was just kind of a downer. I didn't like the way the movie ended. It seemed like all of a sudden maybe they ran out of money, but they had to end it real quick. And I thought it was interesting, too. when the captain was wanting to go and be with his wife, I think they were married for 3 months, or I'm not sure how they met, but he hadn't been back on Earth in a year, and then he's going off to Mars. So that also seemed weird to me. It just seemed disjointed and unbelievable. Now, all that being said, it's not the worst thing we've seen, but certainly by far not the best thing either. And I think I'm echoing what everybody else has said. W5BLT, back to you, Tom.
All right, thank you, Sean, and we'll be back for characters here in a little bit. KB9SOK, Sean, welcome back. What do you think about the plot for our fine film, Conquest of Space from 1955?
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. Well, I'm probably echoing pretty much what everybody else said, but I do try to cut it a little bit of slack just because it was 1955. Obviously, we weren't, super knowledgeable what to expect of Mars, but there was just some really, you can forgive maybe some of the science, but then some of the other plot holes, it's just kind of hard to forgive. As everybody's already mentioned, the whole space madness thing, that was completely ridiculous. Yeah, were there some religious groups that were concerned about should we leave the planet or not? Yeah, but really, that seemed like way over the top as a reason to, instead of just going mad, that's what he picks to be the reason after he gets space madness. Then there's the whole plot the son wanted off of the space station. Then all at once he gets his chance to leave the space station. He finds out his dad's going going to Mars, and he rips up his orders, and now he wants to stay. So there's just a lot of little things that just didn't make much sense. Obviously, as everybody's mentioned already, but if you were training to go to the moon, all at once you can't just say I'm going to go to Mars and only have 1 day to make the change. It's just not going to work. There's just so much. That's just such a difference. It just completely made no sense at all. And then their reasoning was, well, Earth is running out of space, overpopulation. We got to find a new place to live, so we're going to skip the moon and go to Mars. That was their reasoning. Well, would a couple years make that big of a difference? I think the Mars mission could have waited a couple more years. They probably should have done the moon first. So, yeah. And then the other goofy thing is, there's many goofy things, but one of the plot holes is, when the ship essentially crashes on Mars, and then the ship auto lifts itself into the launch position. Later when the ship gets out of tilt because of the earthquake or whatever was going on there, the sinkholes, for some reason, then it didn't have the ability to level itself. So that didn't make much sense. So there's just a lot of little things that just feels like they really rushed the plot and didn't, really go through it. And I'll try to stay away from the special effects part because, as everybody's mentioned, the visuals probably were the best part of this movie. But unfortunately, the plot was clearly the weakest part. Anyway, back to net, KB9SOK.
KI5JCM comment.
Okay, KI5GCM, go ahead.
Jay's and Julie at JCM, but I do want to point out one thing. This is just to defend George Powell a bit. You have to remember he didn't write these things, and we've talked about two of his other much better films, War of the Worlds and Destination Moon. Well, you have to realize War of the Worlds was written by H.G. Wells, who is the father of science fiction, and Destination Moon was written by Robert A. Heinlein, who is called the Dean of Science Fiction. They are still making movies based on his work, and he's been dead like almost 50 years now. So that's probably why the visual effects and everything were stunning, yet the plot was kind of lacking. Directors got to work with what they've gotten. And Powell, in his better movies, had some of the best or have worked that was based off of some of the best science fiction writers of all time. Just wanted to put that in there in the defense of George Powell. KI5JCM, back to net.
All right, yeah, you make a good point. I don't disagree. I'm going to go ahead and make my comments on this one, too. You kind of blew apart what I was going to say in the sense that I was wondering, as far as plot is concerned, when you're talking about mid-50s, you're doing a film, a science fiction film, and you don't have, this is before the space race really takes off. There's a little bit going on, and we know it's post-World War II, and we know that there's some rumblings about this going on. It's not really until about 1958 that all of a sudden there was a super interest in accurate science fiction stuff, because now we were living the space race, and it's become a thing. I just wonder, although, Destination Moon is a good movie, certainly, and it seems to work. We do have character interplay and all of that. But you go to a destination and you don't know anything about the destination. What are you going to talk about? Well, you put aliens in. That's always an easy one, right? And there's conflict there. We have internal conflict, which is what happens in this film, and everybody goes nuts. But what would be the point? Of course, we learn later on, astronauts have a tendency to be pretty resilient because they were chosen to present exactly what we see happen in movies. But you put them in a film like, 2001, and you put Frank and Dave, who are those archetype astronauts, and they're boring as all get out. That's the best character in the whole film is the computer. And so I guess you got to have some sort of colorful interplay with the characters themselves, or you got to have some sort of antagonist on the outside, which is going to be aliens or something going on that would cause that to work. Destination Moon works because we're looking at the mechanics of things going on, and we kind of explain how this is all going to work at the beginning of the film. And that seems to be good, and it does work with the special effects, and the characters are a bit kind of goofy too in that, so I'm not so sure that they work as credibly as they could. But this is before the archetype astronaut, so I don't know. In the end, as I'm sitting here and I'm trying to think about writing a plot about going to another planet without knowing anything about that planet, what am I going to do? Oh, let's see. We can do spiders, space spiders. We can do meteors trying to hit the spacecraft. We've seen that before. But it always comes back to the same few things. And it was only 2001 that it did actually hit on a lot of those items, but then did it in such a forthright way that there's a lot of people that, while a lot of people love the film, there's a whole lot more people that hate that film for the very reason that we like the film. It was scientifically accurate. It did have aliens in it, but not that they were so aloof and unknowing that when the movie ended, people were going, what did I just see? So it didn't always work that way. So what's the answer? You create the conflict, like 2010 did. You create kind of almost internal conflict between different countries in this case, which worked out quite well, thanks to Arthur C. Clarke. So I don't know. That's my long diatribe. I don't have much more to add to that, but I just kind of look at films made today with science fiction sensibility. We got aliens, so it's interplanetary stuff. We got special powers. We got all the things that you need to make the film somewhat interesting or terrible, as the case may be. Depends on how you handle this very familiar material subject matter. All right, well, let's go ahead and continue. We're pretty pretty much ahead of the game right now, but we've got quite a few people checked in now, so we'll go ahead and go with characterization, if I dare say that. We'll go ahead and start with, I'll go with Bill on this one, since he knows the characters at 5BV. Bill, go ahead and start us off with characterization.
Okay, Tom, this is in 5BV. Well, I already said I didn't like the plot, and the main reason was that the characterizations. I mean, some of the characters were just offensive. The sergeant that was just acting horrible on the ground, not on the ground, on the rotating space station, who slipped into the rocket, the spacecraft. Again, this whole thing was run by amateurs. Can you imagine somebody slipping aboard a space shuttle or an Apollo capsule? Well, of course, they weren't as large as this thing, but still, it couldn't happen. And it shouldn't have happened here. So that was just totally crazy, what he did. There was also the other character, the guy that was the guy with no degree, but a lot of knowledge about computers, and well, I say computers, about equipment. They didn't mention computers, they meant electronics. He also was pretty crazy and had a bad attitude, and I don't know. Too many of them had attitudes that were over the top. And then, of course, the character that was killed with the meteorite or whatever. It wasn't a meteorite, it must have been a meteor, because meteorites have to be in the atmosphere. And, of course, they had to show him seeing on TV his mother, and just that incredibly emotional scene with all that. So, again, this is over the top. I'll call it melodrama or crazy emotion or whatever. And I don't know. It's not needed. I mean, they could have made up an interesting plot line about other things happening without having to go over the top in such a silly way. This is inside BB. And then, of course, the characterization that was the craziest was the guy that was named General, the head of the thing, that originally said he didn't want to go. But then he did. Now, if I had been the guy that was visiting, who I'm sure you recognize from Perry Mason, he was William Drake on Perry Mason. If I was that guy, and the guy that I was trying to name General had said, I don't really want to go. I don't think it's a good mission. I would have immediately sent him back to Earth, got him out of there. But no, they put him in charge, and he went crazy. The whole deal about his son wanting to go back to Earth and changing his mind, wanting to go on him, and his son then saving him was also crazy. So I don't know. The characterizations were all just over the top, and I didn't like that. It's just not needed. It's too over. If it was mild, it would have been fine, but it was just too over the top. What else can I say about that? The acting kind of went together with those characterizations, the way they were written. And they acted them in the same stupid way as they were written. Again, the worst was the captain becoming psychotic and thinking that it was a religious thing. And then really the weirdest part of the plot was that this whole spacecraft was manually controlled. This is in 5BB. When they want to start, somebody manually pushes the throttle up. And then they have all this acceleration, they're pushed back, and then the pilot can barely reach it to turn the engine off again. Listen, this is 1955. They did experience in World War II with all kinds of automatic navigation control. They had automatic kind of drone kind of planes and other things. We sent off many V-2 and other rockets in the late 40s and into the 50s. They should have had automatic control. There shouldn't have been a human having to do that. So that didn't make any sense at all. And that kind of affected the characterizations because the characters had to directly control the spacecraft completely, and they should have had the computer doing that. Some kind of automated system. The crazy scene, of course, was the general essentially trying to crash the vehicle, and his son having to reach over and wrest it out of his hands. Also, the scene, of course, where the general gets shot is more over the top. Things and characterizations are weird. I don't know. And in a real-life situation like that, there would have been somebody designated to be second in command that would have taken over and taken the general and locked him up somewhere. I guess that's all I got in 5BB.
All right, thank you, Bill. Not much I can add to that one. Next up, Tony, NT5TM. Tony, your thoughts, characterization, go.
Well, thank you, Tom. I think I can put it pretty succinctly by saying that I mostly didn't care. I could tell them apart. They accomplished that basic test. Unfortunately, as Bill has mentioned and others will mention, they did that through just really extreme stereotypes, which, yeah, I know sometimes happen in real life, but come on, all at once. So I could tell them apart, but I didn't care very much. And, yeah, not much else to say. NT5TM.
Ooh, that went really quick. Oh, okay. At least we can tell the characters apart. Next up, Virginia, NV5F. Your thoughts on characterization from KE5, I6.
Okay, well, we were talking, or I guess Thomas was defending the director earlier, and I understand that, like, the material, it's good if the material's good. I think, though, that the director is the person who makes that decision about what that material, what's done with that material, and I think a good director, if they're taking, you know, good, if they're doing good with the acting and the characters, they're going to have a better, you know, a better time with their material. I think the material itself could have been more interesting if the characters had been more subtle. There was even a hint at that, I think, at the beginning of this. You've got the guy who's, you know, the general who's running the station, and, you know, you have the implication that he's very stressed out, and then you have his son who's not a very willing participant who's there, and there could have been some good, less over-the-top performances here, and it could have made all the different characters and even their stereotypes a lot more usable in making the material better, and maybe even finding a better story in it. But there was just so much broad. They were painting with a broad brush here as far as the kinds of people, the the raucous guy, the big Italian-looking guy, and then the gentle, sort of Irish guy who sneaks onto the ship, and everything in between. Because the Irish guy, I kind of liked him. He was loyal to the general, and even though I guess he was more of a, I guess he was an officer, but all the guys who went on the trip to Mars, they all had different uniforms. He had sort of the khaki-colored, it looked like more of an old-school Army uniform, and but I liked him. He was very loyal to the commander of the mission, and I think that was why he wanted to go. He was loyal to him, and he wanted to be there for him in case things went crazy, and they did, and then he kind of makes amends with the son at the end, and they have their Christmas miracle, and they're all kind of humbled. And then the little Japanese guy, I liked that they, post-war, they went for a very, they attempted at having some kind of cast that wasn't just all the same. They had a Japanese guy in there, and he seemed like he could have been. Everything there was there for there to be maybe interesting characters that told a more interesting, subtle story if everything hadn't just been done so broadly. And I do think that's a director thing, and directors are responsible for getting good performances out of their actors, and I think that the characters you could tell them apart. There were ones I liked more than others, and I did think the kind of, the religious thing was interesting to me because it was sort of, I don't know, it was making, religion was more a part of things in general back then. You had the Catholic Legion of Decency, which is kind of the organization that signed off on, whether movies were kind of okay for a general audience. And so it was just more a part of things and it wasn't, people didn't take it, they didn't take it wrong, they didn't, they kind of, it was just kind of there. It was very ubiquitous. And so then the end where they're, it's Christmas and they're worrying about how it's making it home, they're not having water, and then it snows, which is, a little silly, but Mars does have, solar or polar ice caps, so, I thought there was a little twist I wouldn't have expected, so I kind of liked how they got Christmas in there, but I'm getting a little into the plot. But I thought there was some okay material here that could have been toned down and might have made it more interesting or even more lovable. Characters could have been a little more likable, and the story might have been okay. I might have been a little more interested in these people and what happened to them, because I did find myself, liking some of them a little bit. So anyway, that's it for me for characters. I'll save some stuff for the last round. Back to net in V5F.
Okay, very good. Next, Brenda, WD50ZL. Brenda, your thoughts on characterization?
This is WB50ZL. A lot of it was formulaic. Had this type of character and this type of character. It's like you had a list, a laundry list of people that you needed there. And, I just found that kind of tedious. Some of the characters were okay, mostly because they didn't do much of anything. But some of them were just downright annoying. And they were, to me, very unbelievable as astronauts. They, not at all what real astronauts are. And that's my complaint of an awful lot of movies. they show them to be, dour and just all businesslike, when in fact they joke around all the time and play pranks. Or showing these people to be totally ignorant of science, which is not true at all. These are just like people they pulled off the street, and not people who underwent rigorous training and selection process. It was kind of sad that 2 guys died. It seems like you always have to have this obligatory accidental death somewhere along the way so we can all grieve over it. But the captain's death was truly tragic because he lost his mind and, lost himself. So that was really sad. All right, back to Nat, WB50ZL.
Hi, thank you, Brenda. Let's see here. Next up is, who's seen the movie, is Bill, W5BLT. Bill, your thoughts on characterization from KE5ICX?
Okay. Sorry about that. I had to run across the room to get to the radio. Well, I think it's really kind of what everybody else has said, although the thought did occur to me. And I wonder, now we know that astronauts have pretty rigorous training and stuff, but maybe, if I think on it, it's kind of like some of the military movies I've seen where they're from different backgrounds and walks of life, and got these people stationed on this wheel, and so maybe they were kind of going for that. I don't know, but they definitely didn't seem stable. I was hopeful at the Christmas part that kind of end on a happy note, as they're playing the harmonica and everything. But this was not your Christmas movie. Back to net control, W5BLT.
All right, thanks, Bill. Yeah, well, they could have sang I'm Dreaming of a White Christmas. That would have been a better song, but I don't know. At any rate, okay, Sean, KB9SOK, same question to you. Characterization, go ahead.
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. Just a comment about Bill's comment earlier. I had to laugh about the whole throttle thing, too, that it's either zero throttle or max throttle, zero throttle or max throttle. A little hard to control precisely by doing that. But all those movies did that. I guess it's a thing that looks cool, because if you even look to more recent movies, the Star Trek reboot movies, they do the same thing on the Enterprise. They just got a big giant lever. From after going warp 1 or warp 9, it's just all the way forward. Anyway, characters. Yeah, these characters, they did not feel like people that were training to be in space at all whatsoever. It looks like it was just strictly, more or less fitness training and getting used to space food. It just didn't seem like these people had the attitude or the mental toughness at all. I realize it's 1955. We obviously didn't have the modern day, training programs, but still, these just didn't feel like people that would be on these kind of missions. I would have put these people on top secret military missions, because once again, they just weren't that stable. And this movie, I remember thinking last night, and I almost brought this up during plot, but it was almost like they tried to have a little bit of a humorous almost like they had part of it being somewhat of a comedy. You know, we had like for instance, it was already brought up when the guy was seeing his mother on the screen. They were almost playing it off like a joke. And then when the one guy, his girlfriend, he caught her cheating on him, right there on live television or whatever. And once again, the whole movie kind of had this weird sense of humor. And it just, personally, I didn't find it funny. I mean, it's part of the problem. It just took away from the movie. And also, I think it took away from these characters. It was hard to take them seriously. Not that, people banter, I get that. They do that. Of course people banter. But it just didn't seem like these were people that were in that serious of a position. And that was probably the biggest problem I had with it. And then, we had the son-father relationships. But those can be complicated, especially if you work with family members. I've been there, done that. That sometimes can be difficult. So I get why the son maybe didn't want to stay there. Obviously he had a new family too, but it could be tough. So I kind of got some of that, but they really didn't flush that relationship out though. If they had the father and son reconcile in space, maybe that would have been a payoff, but it just wasn't there. So unfortunately, it was a little hard to care about these characters a whole lot. But anyway, yeah, overall just kind of a letdown. Anyway, back to that KB9S, okay.
Okay, well, I think we're kind of all in agreement on that one. Okay, we're at the bottom of the list. I'll go ahead and ask if anyone else is out there who would like to check in. Tonight's movie we're talking about is Conquest of Space from 1955, George Powell production. Anyone else out there like to check in before we continue? Please come now. Okay, hearing none. I'm just going to be very brief. I echo what everyone else said about characterization. Again, I don't think there was any real blueprints as to, well, maybe there are. I mean, you think about pilots in World War II, and, I mean, that wasn't very long after World War II, less than 10 years. You had heroes, you had people that would do things, but you also had the horrors of war. You had people going crazy, and because things were just way over the top, and maybe that's why they did that. I mean, it is a dramatic license in all of this to just send the characters on Looney Tunes adventures of sorts, and I guess that's okay. I find it somewhat distracting, and the funny characters aren't really funny, but more like annoying. It seems to be something they always add for the comic relief. Does it work? Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. I don't think it worked on this film. I really don't think it worked in Destination Moon either, to be honest with you, although that character was a little bit more likable. It had about the same formula piece to it in that regard, I think, as far as the mix of characters. I kind of alluded to it in the first round with the characters are overshadowed by the story and the special effects, which is a very common thing today in films where the special effects are more important than the film itself and the characterization or even the acting. And so I think films today have similar problems, maybe more sophisticated in how they handle them, but they still are stupid issues that come up. So I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of it, but then what's the alternative? Like I mentioned in the first round, how far do you go with the characters as far as having them be pedestrian characters? Especially in a movie that's only 90 minutes long, what are you going to do? So I don't know. In all cases, though, I think the acting was way over the top, no matter what. And I think it showed, and it certainly to today's audiences would say that. So, but I'm sure future audiences will say special effects are way over the top, and that's happening with films today with all the digital stuff. Okay, so I'm going to do, it is 11:48, so I'm going to do the usual. I'm sure there'll be some comments on special effects, and maybe some final comments about anything. So I'm going to take roll call. If you would like to make final comments either on special effects or something else about the film, this is your opportunity. Please come to your call now.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike.
WB50ZL.
I thought there might be more, but okay, we got two. I've got NT5TM and WB50ZL. I'll give everybody a second chance after those two. So we'll start with Tony. NT5TM, go ahead.
NV5F.
We'll just pause here to give Net Control a chance to add Virginia to the list.
If she is added to the list, you will be number 3, Virginia. So we'll start with Tony. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Tom. You know, I'm embarrassed to say I truly can't remember the music to this movie, so it must have been inoffensive. It neither seems good nor bad, or I would remember it. The production design was rather frustrating for me. You know, a lot of these people had been in World War II. They had seen high-performance aircraft, and they knew the insides of high-performance aircraft do not look like a battleship. It's just a recurring problem in these old movies with the giant rivets and the huge, heavy steel hatches that, you know, look like they should be part of a gun turret or a magazine and not a spacecraft. I wish they hadn't done that. We got a few bright spots, though. I mean, parts of the big wheel space station really did look like the inside of an aircraft fuselage with the lightweight aluminum girders and things. So that was kind of a nice touch. But then they had steel gratings all over everything. I don't get it. And that leads me into another problem with production design. I don't know if this movie had any people in common with the 50s War of the Worlds other than George Pal, but I just hated that look. I know that War of the Worlds was a very classic movie and beloved by many people. I just hate it, though. I think the Martians look like hoard ornaments. I hate that 50s featureless, streamlined aesthetic. Can't stand it. Absolutely can't. And this movie carried that to an extreme with just the featureless rocket ship and the almost featureless big wheel. And, you know, in real life, yeah, some movies, yes, they do go too far. Heck, I'd never accept the production design of the International Space Station. You know, when you look at the inside of that thing, there's just cables everywhere. How do they get anything done? There's just cables and wires and conduits and tubes, and it looks like somebody from a I don't know what I was going to say. Someone from a science fiction movie went completely amok. I think that Skylab and 2001 both struck a very happy medium there where you can tell there's equipment, but it's not as extreme as either the ISS with too many cables or with George Pal where everything is featureless and streamlined like a toaster oven. So, yeah, I found it made everything look cheap and crappy, even though I thought they were actually trying very hard by the standards of the time. I didn't like the featurelessness of things, and that's something I have in common with War of the Worlds. NT5TM.
TI5GCM comment.
And now we'll go to Brenda, WB50ZL. You're up.
We had somebody wanting to break in with a comment. Would you like to go back to him, because that might be more topical? WB50ZL.
don't know, I may have doubled with someone. Is there someone else, another breaking station? Please come now.
KI5JCM, sorry, that would be me. I was just going to say, in reference to hating on War of the Worlds, I will quote another classic sci-fi. He is not of the body, not of Landru. Anyway, just throwing in a little humor there. KI5JCM, back to net control.
Yes, Return of the Archon. Well, of course, Star Trek. Thanks for your comments. By the way, I forgot to call on you in the second round. You got you in out of order, but yeah, thanks for your comments this evening. I appreciate it. Okay, let's see. Last but not least, and maybe not last at all, will be ND5F. Virginia, your comments, please. Go ahead.
My comment is that you skipped Brenda. It's her turn.
You're right. I'm getting tired. It's been a long day. WD5OZL, I missed you. Please go ahead. My fault.
No problem. WB50ZL. I just thought everything was cheesy. I mean, it's true. Real spaceships are just packed full of stuff, and they're extremely cluttered. And you think about our first moon lander, didn't look like a spaceship. It was not a rocket, and it was kind of hard at first for people to wrap their brains around that. It's like this flying bedstead, but it worked. And these old things are just made of heavy iron. They're heavy metal things, which is not the way it was. And lots of empty space inside, in many cases, or crammed full of stuff with the ladders and the holes and everything. It's just it really didn't look like a place to live. We would have sleeping quarters, and they didn't have a place to eat. I don't guess they ate. But well, of course, the Apollos didn't either. It was so small. But they had these big old spaceships and no bunks. So, and on the wheel, those bunks were just, that was grim. They had all that space, and they couldn't give people a little privacy. It's like actually being in the military. I'm sorry, my voice is going tonight for some reason. It just suddenly started failing. The wheel was ridiculous and stupid. I mean, it's a great concept, but that was cheesy looking, and it wobbled around. That was pretty bizarre. And those magnetic boots, that was stupid. It's so much dumb. And then they get out on Mars, which is very cold, like maybe minus 80 degrees Fahrenheit during the day. And they don't even have gloves on. They're in their little cotton jumpsuits. You would think they would imagine that it would be cold there, but they didn't. But I guess they're saving money that way. But they had spacesuits. They could have worn them. And the Christmas Miracle, that was so heartwarming. It's just almost like a Hallmark story. All right, back to net, WB50ZL.
Oh, yes, it is a heartwarming story. Okay, now it's time for Virginia. ND5F, your comments, please.
I guess to start with, in defense of cheesy space men characters and cheesy spaceship interiors, in defense of that, back in 1955, there was no such thing as an astronaut or a manned spacecraft, so we didn't really know what those things were going to be like. I'm sure there was lots of conjecture, and of course, back then when people made movies, they didn't necessarily hire consultants or scientists. They just kind of, let's just have a bunch of military guys. We'll make them into space guys, and it does remind me of the scene in The Right Stuff where suddenly they were like, we have to find people to be, go to space. Oh, let's call them astronauts. And okay, what kind of people are they going to be? And they were, the scene implies, and I think they were looking at all kinds of people. They didn't know who was going to be the best people. And I mean, we look back and it all makes sense. Oh yeah, test pilots were the best people. But then now we look back on that and we realize that they went way over the top with the rigors of testing people and examining them and all the medical stuff. It's almost like the doctors just were like, let's torture people and see who can handle the most torture, and then those guys win and they get to be astronauts. So, even then, when they were trying to be scientific about it, they just really went over the top. At least we've kind of found a happy medium. But, hey, in their defense, there was no such thing as an astronaut, so there really couldn't be a type of person, that an astronaut should be, and there really couldn't be, like, a type of interior of a spacecraft or anything. It was all just them guessing, and they mostly guessed wrong.
W5FC.
Anyway, the special effects, they at least tried. The idea of a rotating centrifugal gravity space station, they at least tried, and it's all a matter of scale. If they had photographed that exact same model very differently and slowed everything down and, lit it in a way that it looked large and shot it differently, it wouldn't have looked so cheesy. And that's just, everything in space looked cheesy back then because they didn't know how to do, the rockets, the flames and the expulsion from the rockets, as they rocketed through space, and they didn't know anything about how to deal with acceleration. They did an okay job here with like acceleration versus free fall and zero G. They did okay with that. They weren't completely dumb about that. But I saw some effort put into this, but it was just, it was 1955 and there wasn't even a satellite in orbit yet, so they were just guessing, and they, like I said, they mostly guessed wrong, but it was definitely influenced by the military and the war, and I do love the giant heavy battleship bulkhead sort of doors they put on everything in the space station. There's no regard for weight. But I do think of the history of them figuring out how to go to the moon, and when they first started, they were actually trying to decide between the, Jules Verne method of just having one big huge rocket that went all the way from the surface of the Earth and landed on the surface of the moon and then came back, and then, a version of Earth orbit rendezvous. And then some crazy guy said, let's try it this way, where the spaceship gets smaller and smaller and smaller until we just end up with one tiny little, capsule coming back to Earth. And people thought that was nuts at first. And, people didn't really understand weight and how much it really did cost to move that much mass around in space. And so this movie, I try not to look at it too much from my perspective culturally or historically, because, they'd never done anything when this movie was made. Pure speculation. speculation, and if the characters and acting and story had been better, we might have been okay with some of the very unscientific things, like the what was it called, the space speed speedometer thingy. That was probably my favorite thing in the movie. Okay, that's it for me. Back to net, NV5F.
Okay, thanks, Virginia. Anyone else have any comments before we close it out? Please come to your call. All right, I don't have much to say either. I'm fading fast, folks, so I want to thank everybody for checking in tonight. Next week's movie, before you disappear, is from 2024. It's an hour and 12 minutes long, so you should be able to watch this fairly easily. Our Man in L.A. The synopsis goes as follows. After a UFO crash lands on Earth, real life and virtual reality collide for a lone alien technology dealer struggling to recover the spacecraft. And it stars a bunch of unknowns, and including the director who directed it. But it got some fair Midland reviews, so it might be a little different from some of the small films we've watched in the past. Our Man in L.A. from 2024. I'll get the stuff out on the notes hopefully tomorrow morning. I was a little late last week, but I'll make sure that everybody gets it Sunday, hopefully early in the morning. So good night, everyone. Have a great weekend, rest of your weekend, and I'm going to hit the hay. This is KE5 ICX. Clear. Thank you all.